welcome back to another episode of The Water Guy Unfiltered.
Welcome back.
It's been a little while.
Dude, yeah, a long time no freaking see, man.
Actually, it hasn't been a month, has it? I think it may be damn near a month.
At least 3 weeks.
At least 3 weeks.
Possibly a month. I think you're right.
So, yeah. Well, I missed a lot of that. There was a flu going around.
Oh, yeah.
You had it
I did.
a while back, and I think you just talking about it gave it to me at the last one. And I fought it, and then finally, I remember it was a Thursday night. I don't remember if that was after our last... It might have been our last podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I just didn't feel good. I went home and I was like, I'm not feeling right. Didn't feel, vomity or any stomach issues or anything. I just, in my head, I just feel like...
Feel kind of off.
Off.
Yeah.
I was like, I need to take some, like some emergency and a vitamin pack and go to bed. Try to catch this thing before it kicks off. Well, it never got me down 100%, but this was a horrible flu. I started hearing about it on... I was feeling like crap over the weekend, and I was talking with my trainer, and I was like, yeah, I don't know about Monday, and he's like, yeah, you need to stay away. Whatever it is bad. He said, but they've diagnosed, basically they've done testing on it, and he listed all the symptoms, and I'm like, yeah, that kind of sounds the same.
Yep.
And he's like, yep, that's the flu, but it has really odd symptoms like COVID. So of course it makes you wonder. You're like, oh great, and got COVID again. But no, I tested negative for that. But I was in a fog that whole early part of that next week. It was messed up because Stacy was I'm in the office and I'm trying to keep my distance because I don't really want to get everybody taken out.
Right.
But I'm in my corner of the office, and she's like turning around and asking me questions that require cognitive skills. I remember I'm seeing her and I'm watching her lips move. And I'm not understanding what she's saying. And I finally just was like, stop, just stop. My brain is not working today. Yeah. I don't know what else to tell you. They all kind of looked at me like, oh boy, this is bad. Mm-hmm. If Paul's brain stops working, what happens to the rest of us?
Yeah, the brain fog in this flu was just bad.
Yes.
I dealt with it too when I had it. I had like mad brain fog for a few days.
Yeah, well, it's kind of messed up because that's exactly brain, like COVID fog, you know, and you're like, great, I got COVID. But I could still taste everything and smell everything. And long story short, I started recovering. I went to the gym on Wednesday. Yeah. I thought I was feeling better because I was like, oh, it's been 6 days. Well, went to the gym, had a crappy first exercise. Got 3 sets done. The first one was terrible. Second one was just an act of sheer determination. And by the third one, I stood up and I looked at him and he said, go. Just go, get out of here. He's like, you're not doing yourself any favors. So I went home on that Wednesday, and I think my body was pissed off because I tried to go back to the gym too soon. I'm feeling really bad. And here we are like 6 days later. That night I had a fever. It's like 100.5, which is for me is a lot because I'm down in the like 97 something normal. Yeah. So that'd be like a normal person being like 101 something. So it was just awful. But soaked through, just sweated all night. It wasn't one of those like where you shiver so bad you feel like your teeth are going to break. I didn't do that. It was just sweaty. So, that was a terrible night. But that was like, I was actually glad because I was like, this hopefully means this thing is about to be over.
Yeah, just sweating it out.
Sweated it out and I didn't take anything because I'm one of these guys that the point of a fever is it's your body's reaction to try to kill the virus. So if you take stuff to artificially make your fever go down, are you really doing yourself? You may feel better, but you're really not helping the situation. Right. You're just treating a symptom. So
it's like a Band-Aid.
Like a Band-Aid. So I ended up, I sweated that one out, and that was horrible because got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, came back, and the bed was, it cooled down.
Yeah, it just
And then I
soaked.
crawled into a wet bed, and I was like, oh, this is even more miserable.
My wife was the same way when I had this flu
Ugh.
because I had the same philosophy of a fever is my body's way of killing this. Why am I bringing the fever down? So I tried to go a whole day with not taking like any acetaminophen or anything, like a fever reducer. And she gets home and she's like, "You're burning up. Like you're at like 100.3. Have you taken anything?" "No." "You're taking something now," and she forced me to take medicine.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but I was like, all right, whatever. She's not gonna stop until I take this. So yeah,
Yeah, your fever was almost identical to what mine.
yep.
That's it sounds like we had the same doggone thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I finally got back. That crap had me down from Thursday until through Sunday of the following weekend. So it was like
Yeah.
10 days.
I remember when you texted me again and you were saying I still feel like crap. I'm like, golly.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because people in the gym were like, oh my gosh, is he alive?
Where's
'Cause
Paul? Yeah.
yeah, I've been there like religiously for a year and a half nonstop. The only week I missed is when I was out of town. Other than that, every single week I'm in there nonstop, and I had people coming up like, "Oh, so glad you're back," and I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, it's like a little community here."
Yeah.
I'm not used to being in a community, but yeah, now I'm back up to full power. So
There we go.
beast mode kicked back off
Yes,
today.
sir.
So that's like a week and a half. That's half of the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy when you think about it like that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we've been fighting not being sick. But thank goodness it wasn't one of those both ends thing. Oh, so we have lots of customers, and I was filling in because we had one of our guys we had to deal with a family emergency last week. It's kind of nice to get out in the field. And I said, yeah, this is my first day back in, and I think it was like on a Thursday. Actually, it was a Thursday. And so it was a customer I've known for probably 5 years now.
Mm.
And he's got a small business, and people that he works with, he knows, like a little family, kind of like here.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, this is my first day from being sick, and we kind of chit chatted real quick, and like whatever I had was going around his place too. Well, he told me, he's like, yeah, last week one of my guys, he's in his 50s, super healthy, gets sick, and just isn't getting better. I'm like, yeah, that seems like how this stuff is. And he's like, and Wednesday says he's feeling bad. Thursday we don't hear anything from him. Friday we send a sheriff over just to do a welfare check. He was dead.
Oh
Yep.
my gosh.
Yes, he was, and this just happened. Like
Oh,
I was just talking to him.
no.
I'm like, oh my gosh! I was like, people forget the flu kills more people than almost everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But it's easy how you minimize that when there's something else out there.
That's tragic.
Yeah. So this was some scary stuff for some people, but
Yeah.
I survived, and
Yes.
here to do another episode.
Absolutely.
Oh, damn, there was something that I meant to say. Ah, I didn't write it down, but that's all right. So it had me thinking about you got to stay hydrated, right? When you're sweating. So it made me kind of dig deep, and I'm like, this today episode, we're going to talk about microplastics. It's going to jump right in.
Let's do it.
So I'm sure by this point, everybody listening has heard the term microplastics. So microplastics, as the name implies, they're basically little tiny pieces of plastic.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them are accidentally created, like indirectly, not accidentally, but indirectly created. Some of them are actually what we call primary microplastics, and those are actually made on purpose. And you're probably thinking, well, why would we make microplastics on purpose? Well, there's a lot of biomedical products that are out there that require little tiny plastic pieces, so to speak.
Right.
But then there's a lot of other stuff like makeup and things like that.
Right.
And things that have these exfoliants, these little scrubbing beads. So they actually they're called microbeads. So that's kind of some of the made on purpose stuff. Now, here's the good news. We've been using microbeads in cosmetics and toothpaste and cleansers and biomedical stuff since the 1970s. So like 50 years of this stuff. But in 2015, Obama actually signed the Microbead Free Waters Act. So what that did is it said basically we're going to ban microbeads, plastic, in personal care and cosmetics. So don't know exactly what that means for all of the imported stuff that comes from other countries, but here in America, at least it's all banned. You can't make anything here in the U.S. that has that stuff.
Right.
So it's kind of funny how, when you have to react and do something, you don't just shut down and go out of business. It's amazing what they can find that's a little bit more natural than microplastics, like pumice, pumice stone. That's a volcanic rock. It's plenty natural. So there's a lot of ways to not use plastics. Then there's these secondary microplastics. Those are the ones that we didn't intentionally make, like clothing, plastic waste, food wrap, tires, stuff like that.
Water bottles.
Water bottles. Yeah, that's a whole section right there.
Another thing. Yep.
But so most organic things, when they deteriorate or break down, they turn into different compounds. They just decay, right? The plastics don't really do that. That's kind of why they say plastics are going to be around for thousands of years, because they don't really break down. What they do is they break into smaller pieces, and the scary thing is that these pieces are pretty doggone small. So little background history here. There was a guy named Richard Thompson, and back in 1993, he dubbed or discovered what we call microplastics on the Isle of Man. Which, you ever seen those Isle of Man videos where it's like the motorcycle? These jokers are going around. Look it up on YouTube. It's crazy.
Gotcha.
But yeah, the Isle of Man looks like a pretty wide open, just bizarre place to begin with. But this guy, Richard Thompson, was there, and he saw colorful particles in the sand. And of course, that caught his attention.
Of course.
So almost 10 years later, 2004, he wrote this book, Lost at Sea, Where is All the Plastic? Thinking, we got all this stuff going into the oceans. How come we never see it ever again? Well, that's because it's being broken down and making nice, colorful particles in the sand. And he actually coined that term, microplastics. So that's over 20 years ago, officially, when that book came out. That's really when the term hit popularity. Okay. So we got to give Richard some credit on that one, for at least identifying that there is an issue out there. So what the heck is a microplastic? Well, microplastics, as a good description, it's little pieces of plastic that are smaller than 5 millimeters in size. So 5 millimeters for us in the construction industry is a very tough thing to envision. I'm sitting here trying to look at my paper and find a letter or something that's like that. It's about 1/8 of an inch. See, does that make it sound a little, you can visualize it now?
So it's a little bit more...
Yeah, it's like the blade thickness on a saw.
Right.
So that's the largest plastic fragment that's considered a microplastic.
That's the largest.
That's that is the biggest one. Now, I like to talk about everything with water in terms of micron level. So if you're talking about something that's 5 millimeters, that's about 5,000 microns. 5,000 microns is pretty doggone big.
Yeah.
A human hair ranges between 20 and 100 microns. So there's some folks out there that got some really, really fine, thin hair, and then we've got some folks that have the beard that if you were ever a wrestler and you had one of those guys that didn't shave that day, and he could literally like leave rug burns wherever his beard touched you. Yeah, it was always intimidating to have a guy that had like such thick stubble that he could actually cause skin damage
It's like scratch
from rubbing you. It's like right when you rub a shark the wrong direction. You ever done that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's like sandpaper.
Yeah.
It's very creepy. One way they're nice and silky smooth, and the other way they will just abrade your hand all to pieces. I don't really think they like being petted either, especially the backwards petting. Usually those are the videos that end up in the diver being bitten.
I don't like being pet backwards either.
No, yeah, you got to be pet forwards. So you got your main category of microplastics, 5 millimeters or less, 5,000 microns or less. Human hair is down there at like 100. That's a pretty decent sized hair. And then you got this category of nanoplastics. It's a subcategory of microplastics, but those are the ones that scare the crap out of me, actually, because they are smaller than 1 micron in size. So a micron, if you were to convert, and they go from 1 micron down to a nanometer. So when you're down from 1 micron down to a nanometer, the nanometer is 0.0001 microns. That is a 10,000th of a micron. So very freaking small.
Yes.
And that's important because how you don't really want these things inside your body.
Of course not.
Well, let's dig into some other little interesting things about sources of this stuff. Sewage sludge is a huge contaminator of microplastics. Basically, it's you got these particles that are coming from the sewage stream, and in a lot of places they actually solidify this stuff, or they take the sludge directly and they just pump it out on fields and things like that, and they use it as fertilizers. Well, it's good intentions, but when it dries and the wind blows on it, now you're releasing all this stuff.
Yeah.
So you're actually contaminating the air with the sewage sludge, the water, because obviously when it rains hard and the stuff gets washed out, goes in the ditches, and the ditches go into the creeks, and the creeks go into the rivers. You end up with microplastics in the water supplies. And then whatever they're putting it on, usually they're putting fertilizer down because they have to grow some sort of a crop. And this stuff can actually get pulled up inside through the crops. So you may have crops mated with crap, so to speak.
Crap crops.
Crap crops. Don't know exactly which ones are more susceptible to drawing it up. I'm imagining like a big tomato, but I didn't get any verification that I'm just imagining a tomato just full of microplastics. They just look so juicy and like they would just suck everything out of the soil. But you kind of get the point. So how did the sewage sludge become a problem? It's not, the big issue isn't really that we're crapping out a bunch of plastic. The big issue is laundry. So laundry is actually one of, if not the top source of microplastic contamination. And a single load, one load in your house, can produce millions, plural, of fibers. So if you have clothes, if you look at the whatever it's made out of, if you see polyester or nylon, those are plastics. And that is actually, when you launder these things, little pieces of the yarns break off and they get kind of washed on out. And that's why the laundry waste is one of the biggest contamination sources for microplastics out there, which of course gets into the sewage sludge. Now it all makes sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's pretty bizarre. There are And let's see. But an estimated 4.8 to 12.7 million tons per year of microplastics being put out into the environment. That's just bizarro.
It's a massive number.
That is, and that's the whole world, obviously, but still, you're talking millions of tons. And this goes into rivers, it goes into lakes, it goes into bays and stuff, oceans, obviously, and impacts fish and other aquatic wildlife. Whenever I see other aquatic life, what's the first thing you think of? I know I like putting you on the spot.
You see aquatic life?
Oysters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You like oysters. We talked about that.
I do not like oysters.
Oh.
Actually, hang on. I've never tried oysters. I shouldn't say I don't like oysters, but
Okay.
yeah,
So no oysters for you.
not yet.
It's probably a good choice so far.
Okay.
I, on the other hand, love oysters, but I am terrified of them because an oyster is basically a filter. It's an organism that just filters the water and snatches out stuff to eat.
Oh.
And one oyster can filter up to 50 gallons of water a day. Interesting, huh?
Wow. Like an average oyster.
Yeah.
It's like this big.
Yep.
Ish.
50 gallons a day
Wow.
gets filtered through that thing. So obviously, if the water has microplastics in it, then the oyster is going to go ahead and grab a hold of those plastics.
Yep.
And then we go ahead and we spend, a couple bucks a piece for these oysters to be brought out at these high-end restaurants and shucked, and they're awesome tasting, trust me on that. But deep down, it's a filter. It's just cleaning the ocean. Makes you not want to do it, right?
You're just eating a filter.
Yeah, they do say
geez.
that the countries that don't have oyster consumption are a lot lower in their microplastic contamination. Oh, because we eat the oyster. We eat the filters that's cleaning up the water. So, but that's just pretty bizarre because all of those, the fish and all of the other filter feeders and things like that, these microplastics, they're finding it impacts their biochemistry, their physiology, their reproduction, and their behavior. And that's bizarro, but it makes sense because there's a lot of things in these microplastics that are being released, like phthalates and bisphenols, which of course are basically like hormone disruptors. So you get all sorts of bizarre fish characteristics and actions. But anyway, that's it for the environment. I was going to talk about the gigantic plastic continent that's out there. Everybody's seen that. I think it's in the Pacific. It's the size of Texas.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe even bigger than that. No, Texas is pretty big, but there's an island out there, a continent that's floating. It's just plastic. It's pretty foul.
It's tragic.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty. But yeah, it's as the sun is breaking that stuff down, it's literally causing these to become little teeny tiny particles, and the whales are eating it, and it's just bad. But yeah. So people, there was a study done, and this one kind of blows my mind. People eat up to 5 grams of plastic a week. 5 grams of plastic. That's about the weight of a credit card. Just think about that. They say, now I don't know how they did this particular study, but they say up to 2,000 individual pieces of plastic a week per person. Yeah. That's
unsettling.
It is. So you got to think about like everything that we eat or drink that's in plastic, like open up cottage cheese or yogurt or something like that. How much are we getting dosed with? Folks that drink out of plastic bottles, they're getting dosed. Everybody's getting dosed.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2,000 pieces a week. So they said 250 grams a year. 50
Boy.
credit cards stacked up every single year. And guess what the single largest source of contamination is for people?
What is that?
Drinking water.
Of course.
Yep.
Of course.
And that is why we're talking about it here on The Water Guy Unfiltered.
Yes.
So, yeah, drinking water, and it's drinking water, but it's basically all methods of hydration, because how else do you get your water or your beverage? The top contaminants in terms of the microplastics: shellfish, beer, and salt. It's kind of crazy. Yeah. So the shellfish, we kind of already talked about that one because the shellfish is a filter feeder.
Right.
And I was like, beer? Well, how the heck, why is beer not safe?
Right.
I'm thinking when we make beer, because we make beer here, I haven't done that in actually 2 years, just reminded me. It's stainless steel stuff.
Right.
So I don't have a lot of plastic content. I really don't have hardly any, but a lot of the raw materials, especially when you're in the bigger brewing places, they do still have a lot of plastic tubing, plastic mixers and things like that. The grains, the hops and all that stuff, they usually come in plastic bags. So there's an amazing amount of contamination in beer. And then the last big wow contributor, salt. And I was like, salt? How the heck can salt have microplastics in it?
Right.
Well, everybody's in a big hot rush to be using sea salt. Well, guess what's in the ocean? Microplastics. So you dry that stuff out, you sell it as sea salt, and bingo, you've got microplastic salt. And then we did find, here's some better news, the non-ocean salt, the stuff that's actually mined underground, that actually is clean when we first get it. The problem is the mining process tends to shed, tires and plastics and belts and hoses and things like that are used, conveyor belts. That actually contaminates that salt.
Of course.
So, shellfish, beer, and salt. Go ahead and put those on your list of things to try to cut back on, or at least check into how they're made. And there we go. It's actually time almost for our first break here.
It's just about.
So before we go talking about the lungs and the bloodstream, we're going to take a little break and we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Hi, I'm Paul, host of Water Guy Unfiltered. If you're looking for fun topics like landfill juice and the history of coffee mixed in with things like haloacetic acids and the forever chemical PFAS, you've come to the right place. Check out Water Guy Unfiltered and learn the raw truth about water stuff, where it's educational and informative with a shot of humor just to keep it fun. We started as a weekly radio show, and now we're podcasted everywhere. Join us. And welcome back. And I know everybody's going, what the heck was he talking about? Lungs and the bloodstream.
Yeah.
So there was, are microplastics that bad? That's probably what you're asking yourself.
Right.
And yeah, they seem to be pretty bad. So they have done there was a study done, and they found these microplastics actually in the lungs and in the bloodstream of these folks. And they found all three types. They found PP, which is polypropylene. They found PE, which is polyethylene. And they found PET, which is polyethylene terephthalate. They're all bad. You don't want them inside your bloodstream.
Yeah.
So the PE in particular was detected in the carotid artery plaque of over 58% of the people that were studied for this particular study. So more than half these folks had microplastics in their plaque, in their arteries. Like, it's bad enough. You got to watch for, fat and cholesterol.
Right.
And now we got to worry about clogging our arteries up with microplastics.
Microplastics and stuff, yeah.
Well, the scary part about that is, the other ones, in theory, you can kind of re-assimilate those and reduce them.
Mm-hmm.
But how are you going to reduce microplastics?
Right.
It's not like you can digest that stuff or redissolve it. It's just going to be there until you're no longer there to keep.
To house it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a parasite that just takes over. But 58% of folks. And they also found PVC, polyvinyl chloride, in 12% of these people. Not nearly the percentage that they found the polyethylenes in, but it was still surprising to me to hear that, that's yet another microplastic that they found in there. But what they discovered, they basically tracked all these folks for 34 months, and then they were able to make a scientific conclusion that there were higher risks of having microplastics in your carotid artery plaque than folks that did not have detected levels. That's good enough for me. I don't want myocardial infarction, stroke, or death. And that's what they found was the higher risk. Yeah. Kind of bad stuff.
Yeah.
So now that everybody's all terrified, I guess the good thing that you can do.
Give us the good news, Paul.
Yeah. Well, the how to fix it part is the shortest part of this entire, all my notes. It should be the biggest part. But so here's the good news. For the most part, all these microplastics are just particles. They're little teeny tiny particles. That being said, remember I said they can get all the way down to 0.0001 micron. That is a nanometer. That's pretty doggone small.
Yeah.
So on previous episodes, we talked about filtration with water. It's just a fancy word with, you get smaller and smaller screens that you're using to catch smaller and smaller things that are in the water. And we've got, let's just start off with like a fridge filter, for example. That's about 1 micron. So 1 micron is pretty darn small. And 1 micron is where that's a big enough hole that all of the nanoplastics will go right through it. So, a fridge filter is not going to protect you. That's from the nanoplastics. It'll protect you from the vast group of microplastics, but the nanoplastics are the really scary things. Those are the ones that are probably going to be getting into your bloodstream. Right. So. Fridge filter is about 1 micron. That's going to catch none of the nanoplastics. And then we get into some pretty cool filtration that we use here. It's called ultrafiltration. And ultrafiltration gets down to 0.02 microns. So that's pretty damn small. We use that on a lot of interesting situations like color in the water. A lot of folks have really tiny particles in the water that are smaller than a micron in size. Because we put a 1 micron filter on it, it won't even change it. It'll still come out looking like tea. Right. And then we'll put our ultrafiltration units in there, and it comes out looking like Aquafina. I mean, it's not catching dissolved things, but it catches down to that 0.02. So that's a huge chunk of a lot of this stuff. So if you can't do anything else, ultrafiltration is something that you definitely want to consider to protect your entire house if you can. We've actually got ultrafilter tank cartridges that you can get. We can custom set those things up. But check us out at ConnecticutRichmond.com. You might even, well, more excitement here.
Yep.
You might even, ConnecticutRichmond.com, or check out, we have an easier to pronounce website coming soon called VirginiaWaterFiltration.com.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that I just let a little bit of the cat out of the bag on that. But it's easier to remember than Connecticut Richmond, so
Yeah.
we wanted to go ahead and at least get something. It'll take you to the same place, but it's easier to remember. But anyway, so ultrafiltration goes down to 0.02, and then there's this category called nanofiltration, which goes down to 0.001. We don't have anything in the nano category, not for residential, really. That's more of a industrial type treatment. But here's the great news. The nano goes down to that 0.001, which, here's the bad news. You've still got nanoplastics that are 10 times smaller than that. So they're going to blaze right through your nanofilter. Mm. And that's really where we come down to the crux of the thing. Reverse osmosis. I hate to say it, but it is great for removing dissolved solids, but it's also good for making sure that you can get rid of all of your microplastics, including nanoplastics. So the reverse osmosis has 0.00001 microns, and the smallest nanoplastic is 0.0001. So it's got an extra zero in.
So an extra 10.
10 times, yep.
Nice.
10 times smaller than the smallest nanoplastic. So that is yet another reason to go ahead and have all of your drinking water come out of reverse osmosis.
Yes.
Nothing else that's out there is going to even come close. Those tabletop pitchers, I don't want to say any brand names, but those big old ugly kettle things that people pour water in through the top and think it's going to magically fix everything. Mm-hmm. Nope, it's not going to be able to filter down to that level. So filtration, you can do it, but you got to go to reverse osmosis. And like I said, drinking water is the biggest source of contamination to us, as long as you're not sitting there guzzling oysters every single day. But if all of your drinking water goes through reverse osmosis, you're protected. So pretty good. I will say, just in all fairness, that there were some studies done on boiling the water, and there were some correlations between, basically it sounds like the calcium carbonate hardness when it's boiled can actually kind of stick together with these microplastics, and the more calcium in your water, the more effective this binding tends to be. So they talk about parts per million here, because my big question was like, okay, well, how much calcium do you have to have in your water? And let's just say, if you've got 180 ppm of calcium carbonate, which is the equivalent of a little bit more than 10 grains of hardness, you're going to get out like 84% if you boil your water with this. Now, I couldn't get any specifics on how long did they boil the water. All I know is that that's a ridiculous amount of hardness. I can honestly tell you that if I had to give a percentage of all of our thousands of customers that have more than 10 grains hard, you're probably less than 20. So very, very rare that you're over 10, at least down in this area. Now, there's other parts of the country where running in 20 is not uncommon. If you're at 20, then your removal goes up to 90%. Actually, not quite 20, more like 18 grains hard, goes up to about 90%. And if you're at 60 ppm, which is about 4 grains, your best bet is around 25% removal. So if you got 4 grains in your water and you're thinking you're going to take out your microplastics by boiling it, 75% of those microplastics are still going to be in the water. Yeah. So don't rely on boiling. That's just another thing that I wanted to go ahead and stomp on real quick. There's way better way better methods to addressing it. The other thing that we talked about boiling water before is that even if it reduces your by 90%, say you got really hard water, even if it takes it down by 90%, you're getting rid of the best water in the form of steam. And what that means is that you're concentrating the rest of those contaminants.
Yeah.
So, plain to show with a TDS meter, how folks that boil their water and give it to their spouse are actually poisoning them. Don't know if it's intentional, but I've seen it. It's eye-opening, fun and eye-opening. But so boiling, it can have some reduction, not recommended. The biggest contributor of microplastics is laundry, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently this year, 2025, France has passed regulations stating that every washing machine has to, I don't know if it's washer laundry equipment has to have some sort of filter on it for microplastics. I don't know how obviously they're not going to run all their water through reverse osmosis on the way out.
I was about to say.
So it's not going to be 100%, but they're probably putting something in there that's going to catch maybe 60-70% of the bigger lint fibers, which is usually what I would imagine is going to be the biggest thing. Because if you look at your lint screen on your dryer,
mm-hmm.
That's a perfect example of microplastics.
Yeah.
You can't really see the individual ones, but when you see them all, you get a big looks like a sock or a scarf growing inside that thing. It definitely it definitely shows you that they come out in a great amount, actually. Australia in 2030 is supposed to do the same kind of thing. In 2021, Ontario did a test with about 10% of the homes up there. Couldn't find any definitive results on that one. But then there's these other things that I can best describe as a laundry bag. It's kind of like you put all your clothes inside this bag, and no matter what, it's not going to let the fibers out, which I don't quite understand how it's going to clean the clothes and let the dirt out while it's trapped all in this big bag.
Right.
But, that's how progress starts. Sometimes it's ugly. But anyway, that's how to fix it. You can filter it, you can boil it, you can try to reduce it, and that's the microplastic thing in a nutshell. Can you rinse it out? Because I'm sure, like me way back, a lot of people listening are thinking, oh, well, I'll just rinse my bottles and reuse them.
Mm.
Well, apparently, that doesn't really fix the problem. Because I used to think, I was told initially that microplastics are like dust, and dust could be rinsed out.
Right.
Well, it keeps releasing this dust. It's not just from the initial manufacturing of it, but apparently you can continue to shed. So the best option is don't use plastic. Get a stainless steel or glass, and there's no microplastics coming out of those.
No.
But don't get aluminum cans thinking that you're safe, because as we talked about, aluminum cans,
they got that liner.
They got the liner, the plastic liner, which is even worse than plastic because it's not even plastic.
Yep.
It's like spray painting the inside of your can. Ugh, it's terrible, terrible. Wow. That was a huge topic that I wrestled through pretty quick, actually.
Yeah.
Can you think of anything? What's one of your biggest questions about microplastics? Are you still in the fog?
I mean, what kind of other health defects do you know of that microplastics can cause?
Well, we got the whole situation with possible stroke and heart attack. But the bigger things is they do tend to degrade and there's a lot of bisphenols in these because they're plastic. They're not a food.
Mm-hmm.
But these bisphenols are definitely impacting, from what I'm reading and seeing firsthand, these things definitely impact folks' hormone levels and cause all sorts of abnormal reactions. So, putting it nicely, just, yeah. Plastics are not something, they're not a vitamin. They're not, you don't want to intentionally expose yourself to them.
Right.
I think we need to, as a country, we need to kind of make an effort to pull back, but it is so damn hard.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, I opened up my fridge and cottage cheese, sour cream,
Yogurt.
milk,
Yeah.
yogurt. Yes, you just all the cheese is in a bag.
Which is plastic. Yeah.
Almost all of your condiments and sauces are usually in some sort of plastic squeeze bottle.
Yeah. Any leftovers you put in Tupperware or wrap up and press and seal?
Press and seal, yeah, that stuff terrifies me now. I have it, I love it, but it is scary.
Yeah.
Yes, I have switched over. My wife is still, she's stubborn. She insists on using, the what do they call them? The nesting ones where you can stack, when you're putting them away, they save space and they can stack like 10 of them in a little teeny area because they all like styrofoam cup inside. But I won't use those things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like bottles. Years ago,
mm-hmm.
I just realized what was going on around us, and I made the conscious decision that I'm going to try to eliminate as many bottles as I can. And there is absolutely no reason why I should ever have a water bottle made out of plastic.
Right.
Some things you just don't have a friggin' choice because...
Right. It's just the world we live in now.
Well, yeah. Like Coke, I'm not paid by Coke or anything, but Coke Zero, for some reason, that I can drink that stuff.
Mm.
And I don't do it all the time. It's just one of those, like on the weekends when I'm just out there and I need a caffeine boost, but I'm drinking it and I'm half miserable because I'm looking at the plastic bottle and I'm like, this just goes against everything I believe in.
Well, I think they do like Coke Zero and Diet Coke and stuff in the glass bottles now.
Where do you get those?
I don't know, but I've seen it before.
Oh, you talk about those little micro bottles?
Not the micro bottles. They're like normal Coke size bottles. I have seen the micro bottles though.
I saw those I did see, and I almost bought them just because I wanted to feel like a giant. If you put your hand next to one of those things, it'll disappear.
Yeah.
And they're the same price as the full size, like 20 ounce.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously packaging is key on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is kind of funny. I was at the grocery store and I was like, I grabbed one of those and I showed it to my wife. I'm like, I'm a giant. And she didn't find it as funny as I did, but
my wife is a little stubborn on plastic and silicone utensils too. We have 2 sets of mixing bowls. We have plastic set and a stainless steel set.
No glass?
What?
No glass?
No glass mixing bowls, but I want to start getting like glass Tupperware and stuff like that.
Oh, I've completely switched. It is so much nicer. You got to move slower because you don't want to like whack those things because I've got a few with some chips.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually did buy the plastic lids that come with them.
Yeah.
They don't last forever.
All right.
So I did pick up the silicone lids, which the way I'm looking at it is the silicone lid, that's not really what's touching the food, and I don't nuke them with the lid on there. I take the lid off anyway. So I figured, for the most part, it's glass. It's 100% safe. But yeah, I've got my glass. My wife has her plastic, and we'll see who outlives who. Because what do they say? Women outlive men by, what, like 5 years on average?
Yeah, but that's usually because we do dumb stuff.
Yeah, like sledding on a waxed cardboard box and running into a tree and things like that. Yeah, buddy of mine he told me that story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know I should call him out on that one. No, we were chit-chatting because he was actually a college wrestler too.
Uh-huh.
And I noticed he moves a little stiff. He's a smaller guy. And I was like, what, did you mess your neck up? And he's like, yeah, I got 3 fused vertebrae.
Oh,
I'm like, ooh, that doesn't sound fun.
yikes.
So he was like me, he was a machine until he decided they got some snow down in Georgia. And he decided to take his kids and show them what sledding on a cardboard box is like. So he waxed it up with like car wax.
Mm.
And he was describing it. Oh gosh, was it Christmas Vacation?
Yeah.
The one where the guy, like, he was on the saucer and he just,
He had like a catches fire at some point.
yes, it was going so fast.
Yeah.
He's like, that's exactly what it was like.
Oh my god.
And he was heading towards the trees. And his wife, out of like just sheer protective desperation, like tackled him, tried to like tackle him to slow him down. Well, all she did is like spin him around so that when he hit the trees, he just had one heck of a tumble. And yeah, basically messed up all of his bones in his neck. But I don't know where that came from. Oh, the wax, which is, of course, a plastic, type of plastic. So plastics can break your neck almost.
That's the lesson.
That's the lesson.
Plastics will break your neck.
Don't,
Yeah.
And no matter how tough you are, do not take the cardboard box and wax it up and try to show your kids how to do it. Was it Sonny Bono? No, that was skiing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible. Lots of people get taken out by skiing.
Yeah.
I almost did a few times.
On the topic of microplastics, though, it's actually become an internet meme over the past couple of years.
What has?
Microplastics.
See, this is why I need to be more on social media.
Yep, and it's just because
Enlighten me.
It's one of here. Let me see if I can find an example of it because they're actually kind of funny.
What kind of meme are we?
It's
I don't know about this.
It's a whole different level of meme. It's like the generational divide between millennial humor and Gen Z humor. Yeah, there's a huge...
For those of you listening, Ethan is much younger than I am.
I am 25, about to be 26, and
He's counting.
7 days. Yeah, I gotta use my fingers. 7 days. 1 week I'll be 26.
Well, congratulations. Next week you will be not even close to half of my age.
Yeah.
August I'll be 55.
Microplastic memes. Oh yeah. Yeah, things like this, like wow, Romans kept using lead-lined cookware, and when they knew it was poison, how could they be so stupid? And then it's this picture of a bunch of plastic, and it says, "Oh my gosh, how convenient!"
Oh,
yeah.
Yep. Now I get it.
Then here's this: my grandfather full of asbestos, my father full of lead, me full of microplastics. Yeah.
Yep. That's kind of it's scary, but very true.
Yeah, but where I was going with that is this was a couple of years ago, I think, at least a year ago, when I was just like looking at some microplastic memes. I came across a news article stating that microplastics have found a way in like the testes and are a cause of testicular cancer.
I missed that.
Yeah.
Where was that data?
Where? I don't know. It's somewhere in here,
I believe
though.
you.
But yeah, I mean, like you said, it's certainly believable. But
well, it sounds like, I mean, the stuff is so small that if you ingest it, it can go through your intestinal lining into the bloodstream, and obviously it does because that's where they're finding this stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can breathe it. I mean, heck, if you can breathe asbestos, I'm sure microplastics are floating around super light once they get that tiny, and they don't break down either. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Brave new world we're in.
So yeah, I'm trying to make a big household switch to stainless steel and wooden utensils, and then glass for everything else. I love me some wooden utensils, dude.
I do too, but I heard that. Well, how do they keep them looking nice and new? PFAS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just carve it out of wood myself.
Just get stainless steel utensils.
Yeah. I'll chop a tree down in my backyard and just whittle myself
you got to do something.
A spoon.
Chopsticks. Hopefully, I don't think those are treated with anything.
I don't think think so. Yeah, especially because of how disposable they are. I just think they don't even bother. Like the ones you can get at like Chinese restaurants and
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, they just throw them in some paper packaging and
Yeah. I've got some good ones, reusable ones. But yeah. Well, so this hopefully this was enlightening for some folks that were just curious about the history and more importantly, how to protect yourself from microplastics.
yeah.
And yeah, check us out. If you have any questions, actually, we would love to hear content. I know that we do read comments that come in. So keep comments coming in, suggestions, like, favorite us, share us. And we appreciate everything that you do. We try to make every episode unique and informative and hopefully a little fun along the way. So until next episode, be safe and stay hydrated.
Yes.